Hello, my name is Macro, and after a very long break, I finally bring to you yet another guide to yet another launcher. Today, I will take a look at the RPG7. The ubiquitous RPG7, which is used by many countries all over the world, is also Russia's main medium anti-tank launcher. The RPG7 uses a variety of different warheads for a variety of different tasks. 6 of them are represented in the RHS mod for ArmA 3. 3 of them are anti-personnel. These are the OG-7V fragmentation rocket, the TBG-7V thermobaric rocket, and the Type 69 airburst fragmentation rocket. Another 3 are anti-tank or anti-armor. These are the PG-7V heat rocket, the PG-7VL, and the PG-7VR 105 tandem heat. I will go into more detail on what rockets do what specifically at a later point. However, the main 3 ones that you will be using as a mat gunner in an infantry squad are the V, the VL, and the OG-7V. But before we look at the actual warheads, let's take a look at the optical sight that the RPG-7 uses. The PGO-7V3 is the most modern, up-to-date RPG-7 sight that the Russian military uses. At first, it looks hilariously cluttered and complicated and weird, but it is not so. To my knowledge, and out of all of the sights for all the launchers in ArmA 3 that I've encountered, this is the best, most practical, and just plain feature-complete sight on any of the launchers. Let's start with a weird curving scale at the center right of the scope. This is your ranging device. A target that is 2.4 meters tall will fit right under the scaling marks at all of the marked ranges. Such a target would be an M1A1 Abrams, and as you can see, at 200 meters, its height from the bottom of the tracks to the top of the turret fits right under the 200 meter mark. Let's check. 199 meters. Same is true for the M2A3 Bradley, except in this case it's measured from the bottom of the tracks to the top of the hull, not including the turret. This is true for all ranges. These are some targets at 300 meters, and as you can see, the Abrams fits under the middle mark between the 2 and the 4, and so does the Bradley. And those are at roughly about 500, meaning they would also fit under the same markings. Easy, right? Another feature of the PGO-7V3 sight is its backlit, which helps you use it at night or against dark surfaces or whatever. I will keep this on from now on just to be able to use better contrast when showcasing the way I'm aiming and generally the way I'm utilizing the sight. But let's explain the sight itself. The scale on the left is used for the light warheads, such as the PG-7V. It goes from 200 to 500 meters. The scale on the right is used for medium warheads. Going from 100 to 300 meters, it is used for the warheads such as the 7VL. The one extending far down to the bottom, up to 200, is the one for heavy warheads. These include the VR and the thermobaric. The airburst Type 69 warhead does not correspond particularly well to any scale, however it is similar enough to the left one to be able to reasonably range it with it. The OG7 fragmentation does not really correspond to anything. However, it is still possible to use this sight to fire those rounds. You just have to know some specific places that I will explain at a later point. I will start with the lightest one, the PG7V. It is a 93mm heat warhead that is plenty sufficient to destroy pretty much any armored target presented in front of you, such as this Abrams. Since we've already established that this Abrams is at 200 meters by measuring it with our little scale, I'm going to use the left scale and aim at 200. Always fire at the center mass of the tank. This maximizes the damage because of the way the ArmA damage model works. If you hit any of the modules, be it tracks, engine, turret, or the gun, most of the damage will go into that module. It will knock out the module, but will not knock out the tank. Making sure you hit the hull dead center without hitting any of the modules ensures that you deal maximum damage to the actual hull itself knocking out the tank or just blowing it up outright. Let's see. Solid hit, and as you can see, the tank is smoking and is about to cook off. Moving on to the next rocket, the PG7VL. This one is slightly heavier and packs a bit more of a punch. However, it is also flying at a different trajectory, which is why you should be using the right scale instead of the left scale. This is an Abrams at 300 meters, aiming around here. Should hit it, center mass, and it did, and as you can see, it's cooking off. Now onto the heaviest of the anti-armor warheads, the PG7VR. It's a 105mm tandem heat missile that flies about as well as a brick. Let's see, it's an Abrams at 200 meters. For 200 meters, we have to raise our barrel this high using the bottom scale. And let's see how well this goes. It hit it, actually a bit lower than where I wanted it to hit, but it still killed the tank. Neat. However, a PG7V could have killed a tank at this range with a sideshot. Now, onto the anti-personnel warheads. The first one I'll take a look at is the thermobaric one, the TBG7V. The reason I'm looking at it first is because it's the one that best corresponds to the actual site. These are infantry at about 200 meters, and so I'm going to use the bottom scale to hit them. And holy shit, they're all dead. The TBG-7V is an incredibly deadly anti-personnel rocket. However, it is gimped by its low velocity and rather short effective range. Now onto the OG-7V fragmentation rocket. This one is sort of difficult to range because it doesn't correspond particularly well to anything on this scale. However, there are a couple points that you can memorize that are corresponding to certain ranges that the rocket will fly to. So this point here, which corresponds to 100 on the heavy rocket mark, is actually 200 for the OG-7V. Let's test it. Dead on. For 100 meters, you should use the halfway point between the 2 and 300 marks on the left scale, and for 300 meters, you should aim basically with the very bottom heavy sort of scale mark. Now onto the last warhead, the Type 69 Airburst. This one is actually for the Chinese copy of the RPG7, but it is represented in the RHS mod. It more or less corresponds to the left scale, apart from the very far shots, where at 500 mark it actually flies only about 450 meters, but for 200 should more or less be the same. The gimmick of this missile is it's supposed to bounce up into the air upon hitting the ground, but it works somewhat shakily, and unless you really need to kill an infantry squad at 500 meters, your best bet would be using the OG or the TBG warheads. Overall, despite the somewhat gimmicky nature of some of its warheads, the RPG7 is an incredibly versatile and incredibly effective launcher that is my personal favorite out of all of the ones represented both in ArmA 3 and the RHS mod. It is good to have with you in essentially any situation. As a bonus to wrap this video up, I'm going to include a gratuitous long shot at that Bradley over there, which is at roughly about 500 meters. Firing the PG7V warhead. It's a hit and a kill. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.